Hello everyone and welcome back to Project Fern, and today we're going to be doing the AYC pump on the Mitsubishi Evo. Now the pump is hiding behind the driver's side part of the rear bumper. I'm going to do a few diagnostics first just to make sure it's definitely the pump. I'm going to check the AYC fuse. I'm also going to flash the cords out again and stuff. But first thing we need to do is get the battery connected on the car and get inside. So the first test we're going to do is actually make sure the motor's working on the pump and see exactly what's happening when the AYC light comes on. I always keep the battery off this car when it's just sat here, but the light doesn't come on straight away. So the first test I'm going to do is I'm going to reconnect the battery. I'm going to put the ignition on to position 2. I'm not going to start the car. I'm going to hold the accelerator pedal down for 4 seconds, which should then start to activate the AYC pump at the back. I'm going to move the camera back there so you can hear what sound it makes, and then it should bring the AYC light on, and then from there we can have a listen to what the sound actually sounded like, and then we can go forward and start flashing the cords out and just double checking and making sure it is definitely the pump and not like maybe a sensor or something. Right guys, I don't know if you saw then, the pump made no noise whatsoever and the light's still not come on, so there's clearly some issue there. I'm just going to drive the car up and down the unit now and see if I can get the light to come on. I think it's 10 miles an hour that the AYC kicks in. So I've just gone up and down the unit twice there, as you saw, and now the lights come on. I'm going to flash the cords out now and see what it says, and then I'm going to start by just checking the multi-plugs on the actual AYC pump. Take them off and on a few times, 5 or 6 times. I've also checked the fuse under the bonnet for the AYC, that's fine. So let's get the car back into the unit and get the cords flashed out. Okay, I've bridged pins 1 and 4 out on the OBD port. I'm now going to flash the cords out and find out what's going on with this pump. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 2 quick flashes. That's code 82, so let's have a look what that means. Right, so pump 82 is pump electrical system. That's all related to that AYC pump. So I'm going to get this car up on ramps now and take the multi-plugs off, give them a wiggle about, put the ignition back on, see if we can get some pump kind of noise going and go from there. I've just stripped back the driver's rear wheel arch in the boot to get to the AYC reservoir, and it's actually bone dry inside. I've never noticed any leaks under this car or anything like that, so I'm not sure what's gone on there. I don't know if it's because it's jacked up. I might take it back down off the ramps a second and see if the fluid actually appears. I've just dropped the car down off the ramps and it is definitely bone dry in there. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get some fluid in it. I'm going to get it all bled up, and then I'm going to see if the pump starts making any noises or anything like that. Right, we've got my replacement fluid, not too expensive. I'll put a link to it in the description, got it off OP Oils. And then I've got this from Evolution Hydraulics, which is a bleed box. Got the bleed instructions here. If you want to buy one of these, I think they're £150. Link in the description below. You're going to need one if you want to bleed the system without putting it up on axle stands and driving it over 10 miles an hour like a maniac. So I'm going to get some fluid in the car now, and then I'm going to get underneath and get this box connected up. I've dropped the pump down. I'm not actually going to bleed it up. I'm not too bothered. I just put fluid in, but I just wanted to make sure the pump worked. and you can hear it does there. So I'm actually going to get this pump whipped off now and get it on the workbench. We've got the pump off and put it in the vise. I'm struggling getting this multi-clip off here, but I've hooked up the pressure gauge and I've took the reservoir out as well. And just for knowing sake, I'm just going to pressure test this pump and make sure it all works okay. I've got the control box hooked back up. I've got the reservoir full of fluid, so I'm just going to keep an eye on this now, see what happens. So that's definitely making no pressure, so it's time to strip this pump down and get it all cleaned up. I've degreased all the pump. I've also cleaned all these parts up so they're like brand new, and that's going to be painted. That's all been degreased, so that can be painted black. I'm going to start stripping this pump down now. I've got these to take off. These are renowned for corroding. If you watch any video of anyone doing an AYC pump, they usually have to cut the heads off. I'm going to try and take it off, see how I get on. Hopefully it's not too hard to get off, and then we can start getting stuck into this pump. I've removed the rest of the bits from the pump. I've removed the solenoids. I've removed that balloon off the end, and also the pressure switch. I can't get these off, they're too corroded, so I'm going to have to get the angle grinder and just quickly grind them off. So I've ground them bolt heads off. I've got one screw that's snapped, but I'm not too fussed. I was expecting that to happen anyway. So I'm going to knock the top pump off now and then start working on the inside of the AYC pump. It's day 2 of the AYC pump build. Yesterday I couldn't for the life of me split this part from this part. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have the tools here to do it, so I took it to Jeff at Charlie Street Garage. He ended up gradually putting heat into this section of the pump. Obviously the pins were seized in, and then he ended up managing to free it a little bit and then cut with a hacksaw the heads off the screws that were still in here, and he welded some blobs on top and got them out with mold grips while using like a high penetrating oil. So he's left me with this bit now. I have to get this plate off. It's nowhere near as bad as some of them I've seen. Hopefully I can get it off today, take that other alignment pin out, and then get this pump finished. Done a bit more research overnight and realised I didn't run the pump enough yesterday to do a full pressure test, but I'm not bothered anyway. I would have always rebuilt it, but I just know that for when I do the pressure test after I've rebuilt it. So hopefully I can get this pressure plate off now, or whatever you want to call it, and then I can get to the fun bit, which is wire brushing everything down and painting it today, and then tomorrow I'll be rebuilding the pump and refitting it. I've wire brushed everything up now, and that's the first coat of zinc primer. I'm only going to put one coat on and then get some top coat on, some gloss back, make these things look like new again. I've got the pump plate off, which I'm absolutely buzzing about. I've had to make a little groove in here, like they show you, in the non-structural part of the pump. 1 second, let me just focus in. It's not letting me focus. There we are. Yeah, so I just had to make a small groove with the angle grinder and pop it out. It's non-structural part of the pump this, so it doesn't matter. When I build it all back up, I'll seal that anyway. So on the inside of the pump, not too heavily corroded, but it's still time to get a Dremel tool in here now, scrape all this off, but not go anywhere in between that ring where the seal is there. I've cleaned all that off. It's absolutely perfect now, and the new plate pops in, no problem. It's nice and flat. So next job is quick look at which way this goes. I don't know if it can just go one way or not, but I'm going to have a quick look anyway just to make sure, and then start cleaning the exterior of the pump up, and then we can start rebuilding it. Day 2 is finally over. Everything's painted up the best I can. Everything's cleaned up, and then we've got all the silver stuff back here painted up. The paint's reacting a little bit to the metal, but it still looks a million times better than it did. So tomorrow everything's going to be dry and we can set up and get the pump built up. Judgment day, and get it pressure tested and then refit to the car. It's day 3 of the AYC pump rebuild. Everything's dry, everything's painted. These turned out a lot better than I thought. They look like they were reacting a little bit last night, but they're not too bad. You don't see this pump anyway once it's in that cradle, but I'm going to use the Evolution Hydraulics rebuild kit now. I'm going to go through everything, replace all the seals, and yeah, replace the bolts, replace the bearings, and then get it all built back up, so you'll see it when it's done. It's all built back up. I know it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's 10 times better than it did look. I've not sealed around here yet. I'm going to pressure test it first before I do that, and obviously I've left the switch out, which is over there, because I'm going to be putting the boost gauge in that hole. So I'm going to get it all set up now for a pressure test and see how we get on. Right people, as you can see, there's fluid everywhere. It looks like there's been a murder, but I've finally got the let's just focus on that, sorry. I finally got the pump to bleed up. Just turn that off. Anyone doing this at home, the only advice I'd give you is when you start to, before you try and do a pressure test, is fill this up as much as you can and get the pump running and leave this out until it starts spewing out. It was airlocked. Mine was definitely airlocked, which was a shame. I've spent probably a couple of hours stripping this back down, checking everything, double checking everything, but the pump was definitely airlocked. So I'm going to get it all fit back to the car now and get it all bled up again. That's the AYC pump rebuilt and put back on the Evo. I've primed the pump and bled it all back up the best I can using the Evolution Hydraulics control box. It is booked in next week with AMD Limited to have the timing belt done again, a new filler neck and throttle seal, in the throttle body. It's also having a new idle speed control valve put on it as well, which I'll go into a little bit more detail in the next video. All in all, I'd say doing an AYC pump on the floor on your back is quite a stressful thing to do when you've not done one before. If I ever had to do one again, I'd definitely be more comfortable doing it, a lot more chilled. I'd know what to expect. I'd know what to allocate to it in terms of time. It took a day of me stripping it down and stuff, then a day to paint it, which wasn't a full day. But then it took me another full day to then bleed it all up finally. Well, get the pump primed and building pressure and then get it all back on the car. I did have to laugh because you can't see the pump when it's in its bracket or its cradle, whatever you want to call it. So you spend all that time painting them up and it's covered by a black bracket, which I've painted anyway, but I know it's painted. So next for the Evo is to go to the body shop and get a few bits done, get it tarted up, and also to get the timing belt done again, rear diff oil, gearbox oil, and loads of other stuff. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's not been a tutorial as such, it's just been me cracking on doing an AYC pump on my own with no knowledge of ever doing one before. It just shows you can do one. Big thanks to Evolution Hydraulics who supplied me with the control box and also the control box, and the rebuild kit, and Jeff as well for pulling me out of the toilet and helping me strip down that pump when I couldn't do it. £1,200 I think now for an AYC pump, and supplied, fitted, and they take your old unit. That's a refurbished one. I can see why they charge that much. There is a lot in it, but I think all in all, control box, rebuild kit's £210. Jeff for 40 quid to help me out, so what's that, 250 quid, bit of strip spray paint, so, and 3 days of my time. So yeah, nearly 300 quid, 250, 300 quid say, and I've got the AYC working. I've had the car up and down the street loads of times, got it warm, been round corners and all that stuff. The AYC light hasn't come back on, which shows that the pump's built its pressure and stuff. It's just, I'd rather get down here at AMD Limited to just go through it again and make sure I've bled it up all properly and stuff.